have something to say. What I have to say may not be important, but what is important is that I have something to say. I see you, I hear you, I feel you. I know some of you are judging me, questioning some of the things I'm doing. And I'm reminded of a poem by Scott Linton. It's called Just a Normal Day. Never knowing what to say, never knowing what to do, always looking for clues. Just a normal day. Some of us on the spectrum are nonverbal, but we do have special ways of expressing ourselves. Can you please show them?
Chris?
Here.
Patty?
Yes?
Harry?
Yes, sir.
Judy?
Present.
Penny?
Here.
Penny?
Here.
Where's Bob?
He's probably walking in the hallways acting like he's a video game character.
That's enough, Judy. Bob's in an appointment this morning. He'll be back before lunch.
Yes, Mr. Meston, sorry.
So everyone, I'd like you to take out a sheet of paper and a pen. A handwriting and mobility assessment has been requested by the principal. Using the sheet of paper in front of you, write your name and address with the hand you don't normally write with. So if you're right-handed, use your left hand. And this is for a grade and is being timed. Go. Okay, time's up. Hand them up. Please pass them over to Chris's desk. Thank you. Now, everyone, take off your shoes and put them on the wrong feet. And do not tie them once you have them on the wrong feet. So, right now, take off your shoes, put them on the wrong feet, and do not tie them. Okay, everyone. Please rise from your desk and walk around the room without looking down. I want you to walk around the room without looking down. Okay, everyone. Go ahead, return to your desks and put your shoes on the right feet. So everyone, this handwriting and mobility assessment was not for a grade.
What? I knew it.
I wanted you to know what Bob experiences each and every day at school.
Mr. Meston, we're really sorry. We didn't mean to tease Bob like that.
I know, Judy. But this is not the first time that some of you have been disrespectful to Bob. So I realized that the only way to help you see what you're doing is to have you walk the world in Bob's shoes. Literally.
But is it really that difficult to be on the spectrum?
I'm not sure. I think so. Why don't you ask Bob when he returns from his appointment? Okay, everyone. Let's take a break. We'll continue in 8 minutes.
So, Pa, how was the appointment?
It was good. Well, Bob, while you were gone, Mr. Methvin made us write our names and addresses with our wrong hands and walk around the classroom with our shoes untied and on the wrong feet.
Well, that's silly. Why would he do that?
To help us walk the world in your shoes.
To help us see the school work the way you see it.
And to help us learn to respect you.
Bob, did you draw this?
Yeah.
Well, what is it?
It's a set design for a play I'm thinking about.
What play?
Well, it's a play about autism and Asperger's. I'm writing it.
That's lit, man!
Hey, Bob. Look, Bob, wait. Look, we all met after class yesterday and talked to Mr. Methvin about your play.
We'd like to help if it's okay with you.
Sure.
So what's the story?
Well, there's not really much of a story right now. More of a set of ideas my friends, family, and I want people to know. We want people to understand us, so that they don't think of us as weird or disabled.
Well, we'll help you with the story, and you give us the designs and the ideas.
And Mr. Methvin said that if we put it together in time, that we can perform it in May, in between testing and the end of school.
That's great, thanks.
Places for stimming.
Thank you,
Thank you,
places.
places.
Stimming is short for self-stimulatory behavior. Each person on the spectrum stims differently. One person may have different stims at different times, but all stimming is done to help the person focus and calm themselves in a stressful situation. If you think about it, we all stim. Neurotypicals, those not on the autism spectrum, might chew on their pens, click a ballpoint pen, twiddle their thumbs, or stroke their chin. It's just that the stims of neurotypicals are seen as socially acceptable, while the stims of those on the autism spectrum aren't seen as socially acceptable, even though they should be. Here's an example: the state test.
Why is that light flickering so much? Smells like peaches? Who's clicking that pen? Oh God, a fly. I hate flies. Okay, concentrate. You got this. Find your color. Find your color. Find your color. If Judy has 30 apples and gives 10 to John, wait a minute. Where did Judy get the apples? She doesn't even like them. Skip that. Next question. How far is the moon from the sun? Well, are we talking about the back side or the front side?
Mr. Methvin, can I get some clarification?
I'm sorry, Bob. I can't help. Just do your best. Okay, everyone. Time's up.
Okay, great. Places for wandering, overwhelmed by the book, the puzzle.
Thank you,
Places.
places.
Don't forget your desk and your change.
Officer, what's going on?
We found her at the mall.
Again?
What's going on?
We found your sister wandering around the mall.
At 2 a.m.? Everything's closed. What were you doing there?
I don't know, but this wandering has to stop. You did it to your mother at the mall the other day. The mall cops had to bring you back.
I was worried sick about you. You also walked away from the grocery store, and you were wandering around the neighborhood across from the parking lot. Plus, you wandered off when we were at the parade, too.
Is everything fine?
Yes, we'll take care of things.
Can I talk to you?
It's late.
It's important.
Okay, I guess. Where were you?
Everything was too much for me.
What do you mean?
The smells, the sounds, the noise, they were all so overpowering. I couldn't stand it.
At home?
You don't realize what it's like for me.
You're right, I don't. I've been learning that autism wandering is a thing. I don't understand it though.
It's called elopement.
But when people hear elopement, they think of marriages. They understand the word wandering.
I don't always understand it myself. It is like it is just an instinct to move away from something that is bothering me or drifting towards something that I like. When people are always yelling or I feel like I'm not being heard, I get stressed and I want to be far from those stressors. When there's something I like I want to be closer to it in order to experience it.
I think we all feel that way.
Feel? Yes. But for some reason, I have to move. I can't explain it.
Well, at least you are okay. I've heard that about half of people with autism that wander go missing. Is there anything we can do?
It's not you yourselves. It's the situation. I don't know what to tell you. Many things can stress out most people, but those of us on the spectrum are overwhelmed by things that many people are unaware of. Those of us on the spectrum hear, see, smell, taste, and feel things differently than others. Here's an example.
That's better. But could you imagine if that's how it was every day?
Much has been written about the spectrum, and if you read it, you realize that no one fully understands everything about it. So we want to help you understand that autism and Asperger's does not define us.
We define autism and Asperger's.
A well-known image for autism awareness is the human brain created by puzzle pieces with one piece missing. While this is certainly some people's understanding of the spectrum, we would like to present a little variation to that image. Geneticists aren't certain if our genes are complete or if we are missing some. But in order to be fully rounded people, we all have the pieces we need. It's just that what we have is not understood.
Depending on who you talk to, applied behavior analysis therapy, or simply ABA therapy, can either be the worst thing that could ever happen to an autism therapy or the best thing that could ever happen to it. Simply put, some on the spectrum believe that the ABA is trying to train the autism out of a person. It's trying to make them act like someone they're not. While others on the spectrum had experiences where they did not feel like they were being forced to be anyone but who they are. This made them more comfortable and independent in their environment. What we've found is that both of these may be true. It all depends on the therapist approach. Now, we do have some good therapists out there who will try to teach a person as a human being. And we do have others who will simply try to cure them. We just hope that the ones that lean towards latter begin today will see us as a person and not as a patient.
So, the story goes that a mother named Sakura put her identical twins up for adoption. One went to a family in Mexico, and his name was Juan. The other went to a Middle Eastern family, and his name was Amal. One day, Sakura received a letter and a picture of Juan, and she wanted to know about Amal, see a picture and maybe even a letter. The father said,
"Why do you want to see Amal's letter and photo so badly? If you've seen Juan, you've seen Amal."
I say this isn't the case. Juan and Amal might be identical twins, but they have different hairstyles, clothing, hobbies, interests, preferences, and personalities. The same is true with those on the spectrum. We have different appearances. We have different personalities. We have different hobbies and interests. The saying goes, if you've met one Aspie, you've met one Aspie. Now, those of us on the spectrum have what neurotypicals call obsessions. We don't really think of them as obsessions, but more like extreme interests. However, we understand that neurotypicals don't typically show such intense interests in one or two fields or things. We do need neurotypicals to understand that these obsessions can help us learn.
There once was a teacher who had a young autistic student in her class. Every time she saw a ball in the classroom, she would go to the ball and try to take it. It didn't matter what was happening in the class. The teacher would always go over to the girl and take the ball away. This would always result in the girl having a meltdown. After calling in a specialist and having him watch the behavior of the girl, he would give her the ball of her own to hold during class. She would stay calm and focused on the work as long as she could hold the ball. It was such a simple solution. But just because the teacher wanted her to act like the rest of the peers, the teacher caused more problems rather than looking for the solution.
Now, obsessions can and do change over time. As we grow older, our obsessions may change to something more appropriate for our age. If you have an obsession with programming computers, you should get education and job training in computer programming. If you have an obsession with musical instruments, you should get musical education. Now, obviously, a well-rounded education is important, but in order to help those on the spectrum learn, a focus on these obsessions can help keep them interested in their work.
Dan Aykroyd was officially diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome. His obsessions are ghost, especially the greatest ghost hunter ever, Hans Hauser, and law enforcement. He even carries a police badge around with him. Aykroyd credits his Asperger's with the idea for the movie Ghostbusters because of these obsessions.
Cue up Caretakers Part 1, Actors, Places.
Thank you, places.
It's lonely here, and I wonder, can you hear me? Can you see me? Are you listening? I know my sister is often with me, has to be. She can't always be alone. But I'm not her. I can't talk to her about what I go through because that just causes problems and arguments. I ask for help with things I can't do on my own, but get no answers. Or I get a response, but no one comes to help me. Where's the support for caretakers? Oh, and I am a caretaker. I do give care to my sister, but don't call me a caregiver. I also take care from her. She helps me in many ways. Yet, it is lonely. I feel like people don't see me for me. I really want my own identity. I don't want to constantly be known as Brianna's sister. I want to be Bridget. I want to be my own person. Please look at me like that. Please don't judge me by my sister's actions, bodily conditions, smells, attitudes, or anything else. I am her caretaker. I am not her. We are two separate people. Do not lump us together. I am one person. She is another. See me as me.
Can you hear me?
Can you see me?
Are you listening? I want to be my own person.
I'm not her.
It's lonely here.
Sons and say, poor mother, she has to deal with 2 special needs children. But I choose to say, poor people, they will never enjoy seeing the world through my son's innocent and honest eyes. Some will say of trying to work with my sons, why do you have to do this? You're not really accomplishing anything. But I choose to say, spend time with them, and you will hear God speaking through their honesty and insight. And a handful will say, why must we listen to their nonsense? But I choose to say, you boys bring smiles to my face every day. A few will ask, how can I understand your sons? I answer, listen to your heart, speak the truth of love, and you will understand them. One may question, how should I speak to or act with them? I say, with honesty and respect, for their wisdom can be deeper than the greatest ocean, and you will see yourself in that reflection of that water. From my vantage point, I choose to see my sons.
It's nice when things can work out this way, but for many of us who are caretakers of someone on a spectrum, we just wish there was a better instruction manual we could use to figure these things out. I remember a teacher from our school system was teaching a Sunday school class at our church. Later, we bumped into each other. She told me that her husband would be happy to spend time with my daughter during class. That way, they could walk around a little bit, so my daughter didn't have to be around the noise, the room, since she has autism. I looked at her. I was shocked. How could this woman know while I didn't know my child had autism? Later, I remember being on the other side of the conversation. I was telling a mother who was a friend of mine, well, if your child has autism, these are the characteristics associated with it. The mother burst into tears. Then I cried because she cried. Then she cried some more. I understand the shock. I just wish there was a better way to determine if a child is on the spectrum.
Well, once you know the signs, it takes courage and being fearless enough to take action. For my son, it was his regression, such as speaking, then becoming nonverbal and unresponsive to social cues. His behavior became as if he was in his own world, and his play skills or his desire to play with toys regressed as well. When your child begins behaving differently, the changes can be subtle or drastic. Embrace the courage to find the answer to what is happening. Let your doctor know about any questionable signs. You have to look for them carefully, though. Boys often show signs earlier and more prominently than girls. It is thought that this is the case because girls are expected to be quieter and less assertive than boys, so they can easily hide if they feel they are showing any signs of feeling different from their peers. You can only get the correct feedback from those professionally trained to help diagnose people on the autism spectrum. Reach out to professionals in the autism spectrum disorder or ASD community and set up appointments for your child to be evaluated. And do it early. If the signs are ignored or go unnoticed, it becomes harder for the child and the parent. The earlier, the better.
Our fear. The California Department of Education has suspended the certification of private El Dorado Hills School, where an autistic teen stopped breathing last week after being restrained by staff.
A source familiar with the incident said that a teacher at Guiding Hand School is under investigation after restraining a prone student for roughly an hour.
Prone restraint involves immobilizing a student in a face-down position.
The El Dorado County Sheriff's Office spokesman said the student who died was severely autistic and allegedly became violent, prompting school staff to put him in a restraint hold. The staff began CPR and called for medical assistance after the boy became unresponsive.
The student was transferred to Mercy Hospital in Folsom, and was later transferred to UC Davis Medical Center, where he later died. The sheriff's office was not notified of the incident immediately, so it is unclear what day the student died.
The use of prone restraint is banned in schools in several other states.
A 2002 investigation by Disability Rights California into the restraint use in school and other institutions found that prone restraint is a hazardous and potentially lethal restraint position, and even when done correctly, puts people into the risk of asphyxia. The report cautioned against its use.
Simply restraining an individual prone restricts breathing, thereby lessening the oxygen supply the body needs, the report said.
This year, Jerry Brown of California signed AB 2657, which prohibits educators from using dangerous restraint practices and locking students in seclusion. The new law does not entirely put an end to the restrict the use of prone restraint, but prohibits it in circumstances for a student to known to have respiratory conditions or heart disease, like asthma, that restricts breathing.
Get to know the person, not the symptoms.
Our eldest Aspie worked out with the junior wrestling team a few years ago. He had an awesome coach. Everything was positive. Well, at his first match, we had no idea what to expect. But he ended up placing third in his division and winning the bronze medal. Woo-hoo! What was even more amazing was that his teammates and their parents were cheering him on. That had never happened before. When he won the match, a coach from a local high school turned around and asked,
Isn't that the autistic kid? Don't you all have an autistic kid in your team? Is that him? Well, that's great!
The mama bear and me had to stop and think. No, he was not putting your son down. He was trying to be supportive. But why couldn't he have just said,
Good match. Congratulations.
I don't like our kids being known for their disabilities. I want them to be known for their different abilities.
Our daughter wanted to dance, but she couldn't because she was not always accepted. She took gymnastics for several years and won several medals, so we thought it was time for her to experience ballet, dance, and tap. As a gymnast, she had a shadow, someone who could explain things so that she did not become overwhelmed. One of the dance instructors in town knew us and our daughter. She always seemed so supportive, loving, and kind. My thought was she would be the one I would call and be accepted without a thought. Not so! I was quickly told that classes were 45 minutes, and my daughter and her shadow would disrupt her class too much. My heart sunk. The next day, I contacted another dance studio and basically got the same news. I was determined to find someone who would embrace my beautiful, very hard-working daughter because I knew that they would learn as much from her as she would from them. The third call I made, I heard a voice on the other end saying, "Of course she can come. We would love to have her." We were overjoyed and nervous, wondering, were they for real? Or after a while, would they say the same thing the others had said? Our daughter was welcomed with open arms, and I attended every class, every week, watching on the sidelines, and stepping in only to assist the instructor on how to explain what to do if she was not understanding it. She had hit another milestone of acceptance. She was given the chance to shine by people who embraced her with an open mind and open heart. And now, because of that acceptance, my daughter has learned to dance just like her friends, and many others learned that she just had to be given the chance.
Sometimes award ceremonies can be difficult. In our son's 8th grade and elementary award ceremonies, neither of them heard their name announced. Our middle son turned to me and said, "They forgot to call my name out." It was heartbreaking, especially since some of the students who received awards had ridiculed and belittled my son during the year. Our school is fantastic and wonderful about acknowledgement. There were just no award categories in which my sons belonged. The next weekend, we watched the movie Chronicles of Narnia, The Voyage of the Dawn Treader. There's a line in the movie that is not in the book. Prince Caspian says, "I have spent too much time worrying about what has been taken from me, rather than recognizing the gifts that have been given to me." I think that is where I am now. It is up to me to show the boys their accomplishments, to recognize them and to rejoice in them.
I've heard some people say that those on the autism spectrum are not able to empathize with others. My experience tells me that could not be farther from the truth. My two sons on the spectrum ran a 5K run for others a few years ago. We cheered as our sons passed us on their first lap and noted that they were running together. Now, they're 5 years apart in age, have completely different body builds, and do not always get along. So we thought, okay, maybe they will make it. But at least they made it this far. As different runners ran past us towards the finish line, we became worried. Did they stop along the road? Were they walking back to the parking lot? Where were they? Finally, we saw them, still running side by side. Our two sons crossed the finish line and embraced arm in arm. Two brothers who supposedly have a disability that can manifest apathetic socialization to others in their environment. After the race, a parent shared with us that she had been running in the same pack as they were. She told me that the oldest purposefully chose to stay by his brother's side, and every time his brother wanted to quit or thought that he could not go on, our oldest son cheered him forward to accomplish what both of them had come to do: run for others. I had my suspicions that those on the spectrum are not apathetic, they are empathetic to the point that they just don't know how to handle it.
Places for Mr. Cellophane.
Thank you, places.
What's up?
Hey, do y'all happen to know the way? Could y'all point me towards the... Excuse me, I'm looking for something. Why can't anyone see me?
I'm invisible. It's just like what Amos Hart sings in the song Mr. Cellophane from the musical Chicago. He says, people look right through me and nobody knows I'm there. I wish they could see me.
But I mean, seriously, you gotta look at
Hey, you're the guy who went to film camp last summer, right?
Yeah?
Wow. What was that like?
Well, my dad brought me. It was great. We got to make our own movies and everything. What doctors see?
Well, ma'am, it seems your child is 1 in 68 that would have autism.
What my peers see?
OMG, that kid is just so weird.
What teachers see?
Oh gosh, I have Johnny. This is going to be so challenging and difficult.
What society sees?
That kid is so spoiled. Why don't they control their kids?
What my parents see?
My child has autism. My child has autism. My child has autism, and he has his own special way of thinking.
Who we really are. Hi, I'm Bob. And all my life I've been called special needs, disabled, and weird. Now in the past, I would have been discouraged by these views. I would have had meltdowns, or distanced myself from those around me, just feeding the preconceptions of my peers, a vicious cycle of confusion. In the past, these things were true, but not now. Now I wear these titles with pride. Because it's the pride of ownership. Of ownership for the weirdness for in my weirdness, I am most normal. Odd, right? But true. By owning my weirdness, I have achieved what others long for, an understanding of normalcy. For you see, normalcy is an illusion, a fabrication, a story. No one person is like the other, and to expect such a reality is inherently unrealistic. Some are happy, some are sad, some are tall and some are short. We all have special skills and special needs. Normalcy is an illusion. There is no such thing as normal. True perfection is imperfection.
Alrighty, cue up Mr. Methvin's voiceovers. Actors prepare and get into places for idioms.
Take places.
When I met Bob, my student, earlier this year, I began to think about my own time in school and wondered if I had friends or knew anybody on the spectrum. As I thought about it, my first fear was I a bully? Did I ridicule anyone? And the more I thought about it, I couldn't remember doing anything like that, so that was comforting. Then I continued to think about, did I have any friends who may have been on the spectrum? And that's when I thought about my friends from 6th grade, Chris, Patty, and Bob. Yeah, I had a friend in 6th grade named Bob and Chris and Patty.
Mr. Methvin, did you say your friends were named Bob, Chris, and Patty?
Yes, Patty, I did. I wonder how many teachers have that happen, where their friends from elementary school, they end up having students by the same names. I wonder how many that happens for. But yeah, Bob, my friend, was an idealist. Chris was a tester. He tested me, but in a good way. And Patty was one of the kindest people I've ever met and a good listener. They all left our school the same year in 7th grade and went to another school together. They had a really tough time at that new school. Very difficult time, but they finally were able to overcome all those challenges and be accepted for the great people that they were. Now, my friend Patty told me about her first day. Her mom joined her to make sure that her teacher was aware that Patty was on the spectrum. When her mother told the teacher said, well, she doesn't look autistic. And another teacher who knew Patty's family overheard the other teacher saying this, and that teacher said,
well, no, she looks like an amazing artist, a funny girl, loves people, loves to please. Sometimes she looks sad, happy, or frightened. So no, she looks human.
That same teacher who defended Patty was also the teacher who created that handwriting and mobility lesson I used earlier this year. When I think back on them, Chris, Bob, and Patty, my friends, I think they were the ones who taught me to see beyond the easy stuff, see beyond the things that make them different and see them as friends. And I just thought about Chris and Bob and I were Cub Scouts, and my mom was den mother. One day, Chris complained of a tummy ache. So my mom watched him, and after a while, she asked him, Chris, how does your tummy feel? Chris thought a moment. lifted his shirt, took my mom's hand, placed it on his tummy, and said, "I don't know. How does it feel?"
Yeah, we need everyone to use clear and direct language. Here's an example.
You know, I really don't understand why she's so worried. I told her it would be a cakewalk. You know, I really don't understand why he has such a big chip on his shoulder. Basically, we were racing against the clock. 12 more minutes!
Why can't you just say what you mean?
Here's something I saw one day at church.
Are you ready to go? Yes. Okay, let's go. I'm very proud of you.
You were so wonderful with her. When you told her you were proud of her, I felt as though God was saying he was proud of you as well.
Thank you.
Every so often, my sons yet again surprise me with their depth and insight. I was checking the cyber history on my oldest son's laptop, and I noticed a post-it note on his desktop. As any nosy mom would do, I read it, and it was a prayer. I asked him where he had gotten it, and he replied, unfazed,
Me.
it was a prayer that he says when he goes into that amazing, yet at times dangerous world of the web. I think to myself, here's my son who is on the autism spectrum and who can conceptualize the possible dangers of the internet, and then he can take action to forestall those dangers by praying. I asked him if I could share his prayer, and he said yes.
As today I breach the walls of modern media, let not her sickly curse fall upon my mind. Let not the tempter's hands wrap around my heart, and let not injustice penetrate my soul. Amen.
Now, all of our sons are amazing. Our oldest is intelligent, incredibly loving and caring. Most people do not realize how far he has come. As a child, he would be dealing with 5 to 10 major meltdowns per week, and these could become violent. Most of his meltdowns were triggered by something like overstimulation, unfair situations, too much repetitive noise. But he's come so far. At times, it seems that he is actually more developed now than most his age because of the life lessons he has faced and overcome. So my husband and I decided to go see the movie Man of Steel. It was only on a whim that I suggested our son join us. I thought he would enjoy the movie. About 10 minutes into the film, a scene took place where young Clark Kent, about age 10 to 12, is in class back in Kansas. The teacher is asking him a question over and over again. The young Clark tries to focus on the situation at hand, but keeps being distracted by his in-depth ability to hear every sound, the tapping pencils, the buzz of the fluorescent lights, and his ability to see things that most people cannot see, refracted light from the windows, the patterns made by the shadows. The teacher, with much frustration and impatience, continues to ask Clark the question at hand. Clark is trying so hard to focus, but just cannot overcome the amount of external sensory information that is coming at him. He runs from the classroom and locks himself in a broom closet. By this point, I am already crying my eyes out. It just looked so much like a meltdown. The teacher called his mother, who very lovingly goes up to school She knelt next to the door and talked Clark out of the situation, using relaxation techniques very reminiscent to the relaxation meditation I would use to help our son relax out of a meltdown. Well, needless to say, I was weeping by the time the scene ended. It was at that point that I realized Superman is an Aspie kid, and my Aspie kids will be supermen. The character even grew up to be seen as a loner, yet one who cares for his fellow man. He just doesn't know how to assimilate to society. He isn't comfortable with his abilities that most people do not have or do not understand. Yes, Superman is an Aspie kid.
Woo! Great show, everyone.
Bob, we have one more thing. Something we'd like to say. Booth, can I get projections? Bob, have a seat. Last week, our families went to the beach.
And although this beach was public, it isn't really well known, so we were the only ones there that day.
After lunch, we went shell hunting and found some amazing shells.
We were drawn to these shells that were broken in some way.
I found a certain beauty in being able to look inside the shell and see what was really going on.
How amazing the spirals and turns, the colors and patterns that normally are missed.
The broken shells had a beauty all on their own, a beauty of knowledge, experience, and journey.
Beauty of being broken, opened by those who do not appreciate the exterior.
The beauty of being knocked against the rocks over and over again until they are polished.
The beauty of intricate designs, artistic patterns, not normally appreciated, like spiderwebs.
You know, spiderwebs have always intrigued me.
I don't know if it's the intricate patterns created,
Or if it's the sheer determination that goes into each and every web.
Or
a spider will work for hours trying to create something that others take for granted.
And at times they have to trust and have faith that the breeze will lift them as they let go of the solid support of wood, brace, or branch.
and these objects of faith are just swept away by a strong breeze or an unobservant human.
Once it is swept away, the spider just starts over to create it again. Over and over, spider spins.
and similar to a person on the spectrum. They work and work to create or participate in something what we take for granted.
Like finishing their homework.
Or walking up to a group of kids and asking to play with them.
Or having the faith to reach out to new heights.
Once it is swept away by the people who do not recognize the beauty in the web.
The beauty of the journey.
The beauty of the leap of faith. They just start over and try to build again.
Bob, we see you.
Bob, we hear you. Bob, we feel you.
Mr. Methvin, how do we finish this?
Well, Bob, we don't. You know, a wise man once shared with me that he believes that those on the spectrum are the next stage of evolution. They are where humanity is going. I think it's important that we discover where those on the spectrum are taking us. Let's embrace that journey that they have asked us to take. So we don't end this. We begin it.
If what I am is what's in me, then I'll stay strong, that's who I'll be. And I will always be the best me that I can be. There's only one me, I admit. Have the dream, I'll follow it. It's up to me to try.